QuantumScape plunging today after a scathing report from short seller Scorpion Capital, the company calling the EV battery maker a pump and dump SPAC scam by Silicon Valley celebrities that makes Theranos look like amateurs. Among the allegations, Scorpion claims QuantumScape is making key scientific and technical claims that are misleading, grossly exaggerated, or fraudulent. QuantumScape counts Volkswagen as an investor, but Scorpion's report says VW employees indicate engineers and battery experts internally are highly skeptical of QuantumScape's claims, and they get nice PowerPoint slides and little else. QuantumScape putting out a response, though, within the past hour and a half, saying in part, QuantumScape stands by its data, which speaks for itself. We have provided higher transparency than any other solid-state battery effort we are aware of, with details on current density, temp, cycle life, cathode thickness, depth of discharge, cell area, pressure. We're joined now by Keir Kalan, the author of the short report and founder and chief investment officer of Scorpion Capital. Keir, great to have you with us.
Thanks for having me, Melissa.
The headline of your report is certainly attention-grabbing. The irony is that some people might say that your report is also a pump and dump scam. So let's get that out of the way. You have a position, a short position, correct, in QuantumScape. How big is it? Are you short the stock? Are you short via options? Can you give us some more details? And whether or not you got out of your short position today in any way, shape, or form based on the fall in QuantumScape?
We have a substantial amount of risk and exposure related to this short. We don't disclose the size of the position, but our model at Scorpion is we tend to focus on larger cap shorts unless something is at least $5 billion in market cap. We don't typically focus on it, which is an indication of the level of risk and exposure that we like to take in our positions. We still have a short position. It's a very high conviction position. We did a lot of work on this name. And, we typically spend 3-4 months doing a lot of investigative due diligence. So, the kind of exposure that we take is really commensurate with the level of time and effort that we expend into each one of these activist campaigns.
Okay, so it's a big position for you. But just to be clear, did you get out of any of your position today? You released the report this morning. Did you take advantage of this decline in QuantumScape in any way?
We don't really comment on day-to-day trading activities.
Okay.
All that, just suffice to say that the level of exposure here is substantial. It remains substantial, and this is a extremely high conviction short thesis. And we don't really think of this as sort of like a in and out kind of a trade. This is a long-term fundamental thesis.
Mm-hmm.
There's a long history of companies like QuantumScape that have made exaggerated claims, particularly in the battery space, particularly in their niche in solid state batteries. And, a lot of these companies that high profile backers, that automotive companies are behind them, that famous venture capitalists that are backing them.
Sure.
And it's actually surprising the large number of those companies that turned out to be flops. A lot of them turned out to be, we think, frauds. And we think that pattern of overhyped claims that has really characterized a lot of these companies in the battery space. We think that QuantumScape is a textbook example. And at some point, people will look back on QuantumScape the same way they look at a lot of these companies that have come and gone. So,
right.
We think it's going to take some time to play out. This is not sort of a 1-2 day thing for us. And I'll just leave it there.
All right. Within your presentation, which is a very long slide deck, I think it's like 160 pages or so, you actually cited, in part, you had a screen grab of an interview that the CEO, Jagdeep Singh, did recently on CNBC on Mad Money. I want to play that soundbite and then get to some of the claims about the technology, because that is at the heart of the short selling report.
We've tried to say what we're going to do and then do what we say we're going to do. And obviously in December, we announced the performance data from ourselves, which was pretty amazing data, if we say so ourselves. Very, very exciting for the industry. Followed it up, obviously, in February on an earnings call with the multi-layer results, which was a big milestone. I don't think folks were expecting it that early.
So Jagdeep just cited a slide deck from a December battery report that they had done, and you actually cite some of those slides within your short selling report. I want to pull up one of the slides, which is on page 94 of your report for those following along at home, and it's battery life. And you actually, the reason why I picked up on this slide, Keir, is that QuantumScape had this particular slide within their response to your report, and yet you had this slide within your report. So it seems like you both are showing the same slide and reaching wildly different conclusions. So the point that you're making here is if you look at the green print at the bottom corner, left corner of the screen there in the chart, you make the point that they're saying 1C charged in discharge. What are you drawing at the conclusion of? Because they're saying that that means that the battery life is an hour. What are you saying?
So I'm not sure exactly which slide you're referring to, but there are two technical claims that they make related to cycle life. And you're right. So they had a data presentation in December where they laid out 5 or 6 key technical claims. In our report, systematically investigated each one of those by talking to former employees of the company. We talked to people in the EV battery group of Volkswagen, which is QuantumScape's partner and the source of the validation of technology. And as we went through each of those claims, including the battery life claims I'll comment on in just 1 second, they didn't really stand up to scrutiny. And on cycle life, they make 2 kinds of claims, right? And just to kind of step back for a second, cycle life is a very important parameter for a battery, right? A battery has to last. So it has to last for typically 800 to 1,000 charge cycles, 200, 300,000 miles. And it also has to be able to do that in cold weather, right? So you have to show 2 kinds of cycle life. And when we looked at the data that QuantumScape shows, there are huge red flags. So one of the standard measures of cycle life is something that's called Coulombic efficiency. There is nobody who does credible battery research who doesn't use that metric to talk about the cycle life of their cell. And there are experts that we talked to that commented on they made comments like there's no slide in their entire presentation where they talk about cycle life, where they use the one metric that everybody in the industry uses to actually back it up.
So it sounds like you did a lot of work. You referred to it with a lot of experts to get their takes. And when I looked through the report, I didn't see you actually name a lot of the experts. And you do concede in sort of the caveats of your report that you spoke to a lot of former employees or people who were formerly connected with QuantumScape or Volkswagen, but they are separated from the company. And so some of the data that they are citing, some of the things that they're talking about may be, in fact, dated. Why wouldn't you give us the names of the battery experts that you consulted with in terms of, poking holes within QuantumScape's claims? That would seem to be the best way to sort of say, this is the expert. Here's what he said. You decide, instead of distilling it and saying, according to an expert.
Yeah. So there are several reasons. So just to step back for a second, right? The kind of work that we do tends to be very thorough. So we talked to 9 former employees of the company. And, whether the employees left, 6 months ago, whether they left 3 months ago or a year ago, the science is the science, right? There's certain scientific parameters you have to hit for your claim to be credible. That doesn't really change over the span of a few months. And the battery experts that we talked to are some of the leading researchers in the field, right? I mean, we respect their confidentiality. Short selling can sometimes be controversial. People don't want their names in a report, but the people we talk to are highly published. These are people that are professors at very credible institutions. They're well known in the battery world. And the other reason that, we want to be very careful about mentioning the names of people is, there's one expert that we talked to who made a very innocuous, critical comment about the company in a public forum. And that expert described receiving some interesting communication from the company that, the expert found very distressing. So I think there's this Theranos-esque like climate around the company. I think Theranos is actually a very good analogy to describe the kinds of claims that the company is making, the fact that they don't stand up to scrutiny. There are a lot of those Theranos-esque kinds of dynamics. Right. And, when you do this kind of research in this kind of a situation, you have to be very careful.
Sure. We're just about out of time here, but I do want to ask you one last question, and that is, you said this is a long, high conviction, a long trade that you're in. And you make the comparison time and time again to Theranos throughout the report, throughout this interview. Does it end that way? Because that's an extreme way to end. Theranos went up in smoke, basically, and the founder of Theranos was on trial. Is that how you see this ending?
Whether people end up on trial, I have no idea. What I can tell you is, as far as the company having a viable technology on the market, in a car, we just don't think that's realistic. If you look at the battery companies, the solid-state battery companies that the same lead investors in this company have backed, they're generally ones that, in fact, I think pretty much all of them went nowhere. So we don't think it's going to be very surprising QuantumScape ends up being another one of those companies. So I don't think it's extreme at all. I mean, if you have a technology that doesn't stand up to scrutiny, and you're doing tests in a way that are cherry-picked, that are not industry standard, that are very unusual, that exhibit all kinds of red flags, I think that is suggestive of a technology that may not be viable. And those kinds of companies tend to go away.
Keir, we appreciate your time. Thank you. Keep us posted. Keir Cologne of Scorpion Capital.